and welcome to the Take Care of Yourself podcast. I am Tara Swiger.
I'm Jolie.
And this is episode 34. This week on the podcast, we are going to catch up and specifically talk about new motherhood, self-care, and the studies behind baths.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Take Care of Yourself podcast. This is a bit of a weird episode. So Tara and I are back from Tara's parental leave. We went on break because Tara became a foster mom to a 3-month-old baby girl. So this episode, we are catching up with Tara and how things have been, and then in the next episode, we will catch up with me and what I've been doing. Also, the first couple minutes of audio did not record. So you just missed Tara basically explaining that she's been away with a 3-month baby girl and how Tara and I have been catching up with voice messages. So that's where the episode starts. I hope you enjoy. Okay, so we were talking about audio voice messages. So you were basically the only person I text on a regular basis, but I was amazed at how much it feels like we're close. It feels closer, right? I feel like even though we weren't recording and even though we live miles apart, because we voice chat every day, it just feels so much more connected. And I hate the phone. If you were like, Jolie, let me phone you, I'd be like, I don't like the phone. I don't communicate that way. But the voice memos are perfect. I love it.
Yeah, me too. And I do it. I have Facebook Messenger group, like groups of people in a Facebook Messenger chat, especially a lot in my doTERRA business. And so the entire time with the baby, I only did voice messages. And I know it can be I have to wait until I'm in a place where I can listen to the voice message, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I can't always, if I'm with Jay, I'm not going to play them out loud. I'll be I'm going to go get my headphones and listen to this message from Jolie. So there's a kind of a delay on that where you can kind of skim text, but it really annoys me when people read their texts and respond when we're together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'd almost rather have the I can't just read text from you and respond while I'm with someone else. I'm going, I mean, except for the baby, she didn't seem to mind at all. But I just, like you said, it makes me feel closer. So I really didn't text with anybody but you and my mom until the baby came. And then some of my girlfriends who had babies started messaging me do you have this? Do you know about this? Which was really super helpful. Because 3 of my closest friends from college all have babies under 2 and multiples. So it's been there's just so much gear. There's so much stuff. There's so much so my little brothers who I just always call my boys, they are now 18 and 19. And that A, blows my mind. B, I can't believe how much baby stuff has changed since they were kids. Even since your boys were kids, right? You and I were talking about the whole sleep safety thing. So it's very helpful to have people who have done it in the last 2 years. Because apparently the rules over literally everything have changed. How you feed your baby, how you put your baby to sleep, what's good for your baby's brain. It's a whole new research project, basically.
I can definitely sympathize more with people who said to me, who had outdated advice, but they're but I did it and my babies were fine. Because I can definitely sometimes feel yeah, but my kids were fine. Who cares if the advice changes? But I remember when my babies were little, I was no, you're gonna do the best you can with the information that you have available. And yes, information always changes, and it doesn't mean that I necessarily did things wrong. It just means I was doing the best with my information, and you're going to do the best with your information. And of course you are. Why wouldn't you?
Exactly. And I hear a lot from people whenever I say something like that. I always get the response. It's well, just trust your gut and you know best. But it's just such not helpful when you're why isn't this baby sleeping? And also I feel the whole trust your gut, you know best is reliant on the idea of natural, it's all natural, and that is bound up in the idea of pregnancy and birth. And so when you take that out of the equation, I'm but do I know best? Because that whole you know best is you're the mom, you know best. But I'm in a situation where there's another mom. Like, it's like emotionally complex to just say, just trust your gut. Like, there's like different layers of like assumptions within that are uncomfortable. And I've heard podcasts and read articles from other foster and adoptive parents, and they say like that can sometimes, um, not for those of you who have said it to me, but for them, they found it like it hurts. It can be painful because it can remind you that actually, like, well, you're not the birth mom. Like, you're not going on knowing this child since they were conceived. Like, there's a lot of like assumptions about how what you know based on all that. So anyhow, long way to say, the other thing is I like science. Like, I treat my business and I treat my self-care from a place of like, what are interesting like studies that are being done and what do we know about how emotions are made now, which is different. So if there are studies on like that have been in the last 10 years about what reduces SIDS, I'm going to parent from a place with the science, and I know that it changes all the time, and I still like, I strongly listen to my intuition in every area of my life, but like, why wouldn't I apply the science to parenting, right?
The other thing is you're also bound by certain rules and regulations that I and other parents aren't necessarily. For example, with the whole SIDS thing, my oldest child was born the size of a 3-month-old. He was 10 pounds, 10 pounds, 1 ounce, and he was 24 inches long. It was 61 centimeters. He was huge, and he could hold his head upright from day one. Like, we have pictures of him 3 days old, and he's just holding his head up. So when we put him down to sleep on his belly, he could lift his head and he could turn it from side to side, and he would only sleep on his belly from like the get-go. Now, I had to make a choice of, I can either not sleep, or I can do something that is maybe not recommended, but he sleeps. And so like
Right.
I had to make that choice, and I was okay with making whatever choice I ended up making. But like, you are also taking care of someone else's kid. Like, I'm so different when I am babysitting nieces and nephews. Like, I'm a completely different parent. I'm like, oh, like you don't want to break them. It's just
Yeah,
different. And so you can make like co-sleeping was the right choice for us with both of our kids. It might be the right choice for you, but it's not a choice you have available to you.
exactly. Yeah, like we're not supposed to have them in the bed at all.
Yeah.
We can have them in the room, which nowadays, like, so that's a whole nother thing that changed too. My friend in Seattle was telling me, like, oh no, co-sleeping is like out the door. You are not supposed to have them in bed with you, but the recommendation is to have them in the room with you.
Mm-hmm.
So now they do these things that like they're a baby bed, but they like clamp onto your bed. And at least in the first like year or two, which is just all of it changes. But
And it's different in Europe than it is in the United States. I think we have a much more relaxed option or opinion of co-sleeping over in Europe. Again, I think this is a temperature thing with our houses being freezing.
yeah,
But are we also have more postpartum care. So I had someone who came to my house a lot, and our afterbirth midwife who would come and check on us was gave us safety tips for co-sleeping. She's like, okay, we obviously recommend the baby sleeps in his own bed, but we understand if you're going to co-sleep, here's how to do it safely. And like, you can never smoke or drink, or you don't want to have blankets in your bed. So we used to tuck our blankets down so that our blankets only ever came up to like our chest, and then baby would sleep up by our heads, no pillows. Like, we were just given more advice, but that's because I'm in a different culture and environment than you are.
so I kind of feel like you need to explain this to our US listeners. This is amazing. So when you come home from the hospital and you've like been given this tiny creature to keep alive, what then happens in the UK?
So, because I had a C-section, I had a nurse come to my home. And no, whether you have a C-section or a regular delivery, people come to your home to check your body, how it's healing. I had to have injections, so someone would come and give me my injections. But then apart from that, they also come and check on baby. I think they come at like 24 hours and at like 3 days, and like they slowly wean you off, but they come and check on you, and they want to check how baby's feeding, whether you're breastfeeding or bottle feeding. They're checking on that. Any like, they have to do like a foot prick thing, like all of baby's care. They come to your house, and then kind of like at 6 weeks you go for your well visit or whatever with your doctor. And but then they come back at like 3 months, they come back at 7 months. And we also had drop-in clinics once a week where you would just go, you could get baby weighed, and it was just a team of nurses, and they would check like if your baby had a rash, because you had to like strip them down to get weighed. You'd go like, baby has a rash, I don't know what to do. They'd give you advice about that. Like, we have so much support, and yes, it falls down. Like, it's not perfect, but you're not left like to just take care of this baby.
Right. Which is the problem here is like you go home with your baby and the American moms can like tell me the specifics of this, but like then you go back for I think it's not until 2 weeks. So can you imagine like 14 days you literally are talking to no other healthcare provider? And of course there's like nursing hotlines you can call, but that's not a person who's working with you or in your own home and can like look at the baby. And then you have checkups like every 2 weeks for a while. And then after, I think a month or two, it goes to a couple. Yeah. So Leanne said we had no well child care insurance at the time, but we went once a month, then every 3 months. So it's like a whole month of not knowing what's happening. Or like the problem that a lot of the moms I know who breastfeed is if the baby's tongue tied, they will, or they have failure to thrive. You won't find that out until 2 or 3 weeks in. And that is like so scary. The baby we had in our care, actually, one of her family members told us at the very end, like that's what she had gone through in her first 4 weeks is she lost weight. And actually it took her till month 2 that she got back to her birth weight.
Yep.
And her birth weight was really low. When she was with us, she gained 2 pounds in 2 weeks. So they were like, I'm so excited she gained weight. Because that's just like, it's so stressful.
Yeah. Rowan, my youngest, had the same thing. He lost weight, and he didn't, at his 1 month checkup, he was still below his birth weight. But I think they came like every week. Like, we knew what his weight was and we were tracking it, and they weren't too worried because he was, again, a 10-pound baby. Both my kids were. And so he dropped to like 9 pounds something. Now, I feel like they should have been more worried because it was actually a sign of his allergies that he was not absorbing his nutrients, and he was puking so much of his food up because he was intolerant to it. But we were on top of it. And so throughout his, like, till we got a handle on his allergies, basically, people were monitoring his weight, and they were coming to our house, or they were saying like, okay, we want you to go check in at the clinic every week so we can keep on top of this. Like, we had a lot of support, and we definitely knew what was going on. And it wasn't just like we showed up at his 6-week checkup and they were like, oh, he's still not as birth weight, and like trying to figure that out. Like, we could monitor it.
Right. And so when you did go to the doctor, you guys had like all that data that to like look at, as opposed to just like, well, mom says this or that.
You get a book. So each of kid gets it's called a red book. And it's like, I don't know, like the size, just, I don't know, like a half of a notebook, like half of a US letter page. And every time someone comes to your house, one of the nurses, there's sheets that they fill in and they make their notes, and they pull out a copy, and a copy stays in his book. And at the back, it keeps track of all his vaccinations. And at the back, there is a weight chart. And so every time you get him weighed, they plot it on your chart, and same with the height. So you don't have to remember anything. You don't have to keep your own notes. And this book just follows you around for the first 5 years of their life. Every appointment you go to, you bring the red book, and they mark down the stuff in there.
Oh my gosh.
So,
I wanted to talk
when
about
you got the foster placement, they would have handed you a red book, and you would have been like, oh, here's all her weight, here's her allergies. Like, they would have had it in there.
Right. And I mean, and it wasn't like her parents had all of her stuff in a diaper bag. So like I got her Social Security cards and her WIC coupons and her immunization little like printout for her next. So like they were, and that's surprising in foster care, but they were on top of the paperwork. Like they cared about her a lot. But there was no like standardized. I kind of had to go through it all and figure out what I was looking at. There was nothing standardized. And when she goes on, after me, she went to another placement, which is a family member who had known her, but still like the stuff I told them, I just wrote down on a piece of printer paper in my handwriting because, like all the things we did to help her stop spitting up so much, there was nothing, standardized about it. And so it's like, it just seems to me that it puts the whole family at risk more than they need to be. And I wanted you to talk about it so our American listeners could hear like the way that I think so many of my mom friends here are just like, well, this is how it is. And it sucks, but this is how it is. It's like, but it's not this way everybody, everywhere. And in cultures that are almost identical to ours, they're doing things just like so much better and different.
Yeah,
Uh,
I was really impressed with Rowan. So Leo was fine. Like, he didn't have any issues. He skated through childhood fine. But Rowan, with my youngest, with his eczema and his asthma and his allergies, we had a lot more medical interventions with him. But I remember when his skin was really bad, at one point we were having a nurse come out once a week to our house to check his skin, and we were having a nurse come out to check his asthma and to like talk to us about that. They were coming out regularly, and we were going to see like 3 different doctors because we had a nutritionist, we had an allergist, and then we just had like your general pediatrician, because here you just go see a general practitioner and then you only would see like a proper pediatrician if it warrants it. um and yeah, I was like so impressed with how many people just came to our house for appointments, rather than like us having to drive everywhere. And it was actually one of the nurses who came out who ended up advocating for us, because we struggled to get our GP to take us seriously. And remember, she came out and it was just supposed to be like a 7-month check. How's weaning going? How's mom doing? And I ended up bursting into tears because she had asked me about sleep. And at that point, he was waking up every 45 minutes,
oh my,
which is torture. Like,
yeah.
if you wake up every 45 minutes all night long for night after night after night, it's torture. You don't get your REM cycle. And I remember like just bursting into tears when she asked me about it, and she was like, honey, what's wrong? And I was like, here's what's going on, and no one's taking us seriously, and the doctors keep saying, well, let's just hospitalize him, and like that scares us. And she's like, no, 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 let me talk to your GP. And she ended up phoning our GP for us and saying like, you need to refer them to the pediatrician, they don't need to go like hospitalized, you just. And yeah, the support that we got from our midwives and our nurses that we saw, particularly with Rowan, were amazing.
That's so awesome. That's so excellent. You had that. It reminded me that you burst into tears. Reminded me that my friend had postpartum depression, and she was she has a master's in psychology. She was a licensed family therapist, so she knew that's what she had, and it took her 3 months to get in to see somebody. Um, and then when she saw the person was like, "It's just new motherhood." She was like, no, I know myself. Like, it was her second kid. So she knew what new motherhood was like. It actually wasn't brand new to her. And it was a really, really frustrating process. And now her baby's 9 months old and she's just now getting treatment for it. And it's like, it's horrifying. Like, if someone had been coming and checking on her and been good at their job, they would have caught it in like week 2 when she started texting me about it. Because she tried all like the natural things first. So she was like essential oils, and her husband took over the night shift so she could get sleep. Like, she was doing all the things, and like the system just is almost impossible to get into.
Yeah,
So
and the one thing I wish I knew was that it's not just postpartum depression, there's postpartum anxiety, and
yes,
it can occur for the first year. So
yeah,
I think I basically, what happened when we were going through the heat of Rowan's allergies at 7 months is I got postpartum anxiety really bad. And that was like the worst part of my anxiety, where I was having like daily panic attacks. But I didn't tell anyone, didn't want anyone to know. And it took me a long time. It took me like a year to admit to Ian, like, something's not right, because like I think I'm having panic attacks all the time. And so like then I was able to get help. But I think if I had known that postpartum anxiety, because people kept asking me, like, and all of the nurses and stuff, they'd ask, like, how often do you cry? And are you generally happy? And do you look, and I was happy, like, I was fine until I had
right,
a panic attack. And then but I just thought, but my kid has allergies. So, like, of course I'm going to panic over every rash and like every,
right.
and if someone had asked, like, oh, how often do you worry about like your kid dying? And how many times a night do you check that he's breathing? And like, how many panic
Right.
attacks do you have a day? Like, then I think I would have, like, if I had had
Right.
those words in my vocabulary, it would have been
Yeah.
easier to access help a lot sooner. So that's one thing I do wish, that people were educated that you can have postpartum depression, you can have postpartum anxiety, and it's not just the first 6 weeks, it's for the first full year after they're born that you can, be affected by either of those.
Yeah. And then the anxiety can just stay, right? Like I
Hmm.
remember one of the first self-care things you and I talked about was and you can edit this out if you don't want it in it, but you were staying up really, really late until almost your husband woke up because your anxiety told you that you guys couldn't be asleep because your kids wouldn't be okay, right?
Yeah,
Like you
I
needed
just
to stay
felt
awake to keep your kids safe.
if I stayed, it wasn't conscious at first, but first of all,
Right.
it happened like Rowan would need someone to be awake with him until 2 in the morning. He used to, one of the side effects to his medication was insomnia. So he would wake up like at midnight and he would be up till 2 or 3 in the morning. And I was taking that shift. But then it just became like I would stay up because if either of the kids cried, if Rowan's asthma was bad, if I could hear him coughing, I would just stay up and it almost was like, if I just minimize the amount of time that no one's awake, I can protect everyone. I can look after my kids. No one's going to break into my house. Like everything's going to be fine because I would stay up till 3, 4 in the morning and my husband would get up at 6. So like I was only leaving the house unprotected for like 2 hours.
Yes.
And I think
Yeah.
that was a real big mental block that I had to like figure out and then acknowledge and then work through and be like, no, it's safe for us to both be
Yeah.
asleep at the same time.
And we're kind of both giggling about it almost because like once you like make it like you shift like sift it up into consciousness, we're able to see like, oh, that's definitely anxiety talking. Like
Yeah.
that is one of those like anxiety logics that like when I am in the midst of anxiety logic, it is perfectly logical. And
Yes.
because I'm a questioner and because I like logic and analytics, like I will fight you to, especially if you're my husband, I'll fight you to the death that it's logical, but it's anxiety logic.
Yeah.
And like then once I like become aware of like what's the undergirding like principles, like for you it's that an adult being awake keeps your house safe. Like once you're able to see that, then you're like, oh, that's not logical. But I've had so many things like that. Like if I will just do X, I will be safe. And then realizing that like, oh, that's anxiety logic. That's not like logic.
Yeah, I mean, we had this with the essential oils because when we got the essential oils, when I started using them and they helped me loads, I would only stick with oils that I researched in like 3 different books and they all said like they were safe for different, like, pets and kids and asthma and allergies. And I would like test them one at a time and it was all good stuff, but I was like, I can't
Yeah.
use the blends because like I have to individually know
Hand touch.
and
Yeah.
touch and research every oil. And then it was like, oh, that's like partly sound, especially for my kid. Of course I'm gonna patch test oils, but I can patch test a blend once I know most of the ones in there are safe. And like I can trust this company to put out safe blends and to like that their research is okay and I don't have to independently verify study after study after like that's where anxiety, it's like there's a little bit of logic and then my anxiety just takes it off the deep end. And that's when I have to figure out like, okay, is this just me being safe or is this anxiety telling me that the world is unsafe and I have to like micromanage every detail in order for us to be safe?
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's such a good way of saying it. I'm glad we talked about this because this actually goes back to the whole new motherhood thing that like when people tell you just trust your gut, but if your anxiety brain is turned on and is using anxiety logic, like actually know, like reading articles that tell me it'll be fine to help manage it. You know what I mean? Like, so reading books and articles that are very like come from the place of like it'll probably be fine is what I need to help quell the anxiety logic about it all. One of the things you and I texted about during this break was this article Jay sent me about baths. Do you have that article pulled up? Because I can pull it up.
I don't, but I remember what you told me.
So I think I shared it in the Facebook group already. So the article basically says that now it was a super small study that they did on not that many people. So just beware of that. But that hot baths could be as effective as exercise in helping depression. So I don't like this framework that like it's hot baths or exercise, because obviously, like, best yet, go for a long walk and then get a hot bath, which is what I did yesterday. But it like even tells you how to do. So what they used is the Hamilton Depression Rating Scale uh, for 45 subjects before they then did this intervention, and then after. And the people who took what was it? 2 hot baths a week for 30 minutes and then relaxed with hot water bottles and a warm blanket for 20 minutes afterwards, which is just the best part, had a bigger reduction in their Hamilton Depression Rating Scale score after, I don't know how long it was. Subjects retested after 8 weeks. So those who bathed reported a 6-point drop in their score. Exercise patients only saw a 3-point drop. The other thing is a lot more of the exercise patients dropped out because they were told to do 45 minutes twice a week of exercise. And it's just much easier to stick with a bath protocol than it is an exercise protocol.
I didn't love, like, the conclusion is that, like, obviously, like, they were testing baths against exercise, but, like, bath is a form of self-care, it's relaxing, it helps you sleep better. Like, I think there are so many factors into why a bath and lying with a hot water bottle could be better for depression than exercise, but I just love that we're telling people to take more baths and to curl up under blankets with hot water bottles because it's amazing.
It is. So yesterday I was like, well, I have to do my second. I mean, I took a hot bath like a couple days before, but I guess it would have been the previous week. So yesterday, I took a hot bath after I went for a long walk, and I when I got out, I like did the whole like with extra blankets, like curled up with my book. But Jay texted me that his cousin was coming over to pick something up. And I was like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to be done with my 20 minutes under my blanket. And I'm doing this for science. So I'm going to just like, so I went from the couch to the bedroom. So then his cousin, cause it was after my bath, I didn't have on a bra. Like I didn't want to, my hair was all wet. It's like, I don't want to deal with it. But I just think it's really funny because now, so Jay sent me this article. So now I use this article as like, my 50 minutes of like science bath is not up yet. Please step aside.
Yeah. I love it because I mean, I love baths so much. Whenever I'm starting to feel cranky or I find myself snapping at the kids more, I'm like, I need a bath because like water just relaxes me in general. But it's also like, I never read in the bath. I don't watch shows. Like I don't have any devices. Sometimes I'll put music on, but like it's like meditating. Like I will just sit in the water for 30 minutes and do nothing. And it's just bliss for me.
I love it. I often will read, but I will make it like I'm reading a novel. Like it won't be nonfiction. Like it'll be something like that is just fun, But I really like a Spotify playlist as I'm in there. Here's the thing. I find if I don't read, like I think too much, like I'll get overthinky and then I'll be like, I want to take down notes on what I'm supposed to do tomorrow.
Yeah, so that's meditation. You could just think, oh, I'm really overthinking this. And then just like go back to counting breathing. Like you don't have to count your breaths for the whole time. But if you found yourself overthinking, you could just acknowledge that and switch the channel.
It's so funny because I definitely do that during meditation. Like I know how to do that and it never occurs to me when I'm in the bath. I mean, or I'll be like, well, I'm thinking too much. I need to stop thinking too much. And then I'll like start thinking about something else. You know what I mean? Like too much. So yeah, so good point. Maybe I'll try it without. Do you use essential oils in your bath?
Yep. I will not have a bath without them. So I have a bath. I like my water quite warm and I use Epsom salts and bubble bath always. And my essential oils, I have a dropper bottle where I have a mix. So I use Melaleuca, lavender, and bergamot. I think in equal proportion. And then I just have it in a little bottle and I put in like 10 drops, either right onto the Epsom salts because that seems to mix them in, or just in a little bit of carrier oil and put it on the bath because you don't want the essential oils to just sit on the water.
Yeah, I love it. I usually use, and I think I got this blend from you, lavender and cedarwood and frankincense. And if it's near my cycle or really at any point in my cycle, but really like the last 2 weeks, I'll use geranium, which helps hormone balance. And yeah, I don't love the smell of geranium on its own, but it's great for your skin. It's like
Hmm.
amazing whenever I use it on like a blister or something. So I add that, like it'll be like several drops of lavender, cedarwood, frankincense, and just like one drop of geranium. Um, and yeah, it's just the best. But just like you, Epsom salts, bubble bath. I want it to be like very bubbly. Like I go overboard on the bubble bath. The thing is I've made my own DIY bubble bath, but it never makes big bubbles because there's actually some chemical thing that's probably horrible for you that makes the bubbles like stay bubbles. So I don't know if you've ever tried to make your own DIY, but it won't be like super bubbly. So I just buy the most natural thing I can find at the pharmacy that makes the biggest bubbles because that's what matters to me.
Same.
And so speaking of like baths and self-care, one of the things that we kind of talked about a little bit ahead of time is like the total lack of self-care that happened with a new baby. And I just wanted to be like honest about it because I think, okay, so as women, we all know we're under a lot of pressure to like look a certain way and talk a certain way and act a certain way and be on top of all these things and also keep your child from dying of SIDS and figure out what allergies they have and keep people from breaking in your house. But like then we're also supposed to take care of ourselves on top of it. And I've wanted all along for our conversations about self-care to not be another message that like this is something you should do and if you don't do it you suck, but just like, hey, you're allowed to do this. Like it's good for your mental health, which is good for your business, and it's good for your family to take a break. But then also be honest. Like I literally didn't brush my teeth for the first 3 days we had the baby. Like I think, oh, I did get in the habit of showering every other day, which was like more than I sometimes do pre-baby. But just because I was covered in milky spit up, like it was, and I was sweating constantly. It was very gross around here, especially the first week. So I showered every other day, but that was kind of it. Like, and I would realize when I showered, I haven't brushed my hair. Like, I haven't even like peed when I need to pee. I ate because Jay fed me like and would actually text me during the day to say, "Have you had lunch?" when he wasn't here. And it's just like, man, it was it was just all consuming, I guess.
Yeah, it's really hard. When I had kids, showering was like, hold the baby for 5 minutes. I need to feel human again. And like
Yeah,
showering, but that's why people brush their teeth in the shower because, like,
right.
that's your one time. You shower, you brush your teeth, like, that's it. You got 5 minutes, you get it all done. But I wouldn't like wash my hair. Like, I would just jump in the water and like soap up, and like, that's all you had time for. But a lot of other self care things, they do just go by the wayside, and it doesn't help with like anxiety or like your sleep deprivation, like all of your tools for keeping yourself mentally and physically healthy just fall away when you have kids, and it's hard.
Yes. And and it's just especially, I feel like it was getting easier the longer we had her, but like, because everything was new, it was like, I like literally couldn't keep anything in my mind, let alone like I should brush my teeth. Like everything fell out of my head because I was fully focused on keeping this human being alive and figuring out what she was trying to communicate. But I was going to say, oh, there's a lot of things that will like help your mental health that we don't even think about as self-care. So obviously like there's baths and there's like taking care of your physical body, like using the bathroom and eating and drinking water. So what I did was I was try to be really good about drinking water. And also the big one, and I think we've talked about this a couple times, is like getting sunshine. Actually getting the sunlight on your eyeballs helps your melatonin at night, which helps you sleep better. It helps reset your biological clock, and waking up at the same time every day. Even if I got up a lot at night, like I still, or even if Jay was doing the baby or whatever, I still tried to get up at the same time each day and then immediately go outside. And often that was just walking the dogs, or it was when the baby was still asleep, like going out and having my coffee on the porch and like looking at the sunshine, and also just going outside. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's so easy to feel like my whole house was like it. And because going outside with a baby, even for a minute, felt like this very scary, risky thing. Like, she just seems so unprotected. The first time I took her outside, I like had all these layers. She had like things on her hands and things on her feet. It was like 70 degrees here, which for those of you who don't do Fahrenheit, it's like very warm, extremely warm. But I just like, she seemed so unprotected that going outside the house seemed really scary. But that was like the first step in self-care, was like drinking water, looking at the sunshine. I was literally like the peak of what I could do, but it did help, because I would be like, oh, there's like a whole world. There's like, it's not just me in this bubble with this baby, and oh my gosh, am I going to keep her alive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So yeah, thanks for catching up with me this week.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening, guys.
We will talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.